Okay, the meeting is now being recorded. We are live streaming to Facebook, and as a reminder to everyone who's dialed in, if you're not speaking, please make sure you mute your phones, and we are good to go.
Roger, can you mute call-in user 13, please? Thank you. All right, we'll call this special meeting of the Board of Finance to order. And the first thing I'm going to do is just do a roll call of Board of Finance members. Myself, Tim O'Brien is on. Glenn Frischman, are you on?
I'm here.
Mike Fauerbach?
Yeah, here by audio, yep.
Lynn Young, are you there? I heard you before, but I'm not hearing you now, Lynn.
No, I'm here. There's some static in the background.
Gotcha. Okay. Bob Stachin?
I'm here. Yep.
Deb Norman?
I'm here.
Deb unmuted herself and we didn't hear you, so.
Can you hear me now?
Yep, got you now.
Thanks.
Perfect. And Dave Motherway?
Here.
And then Jim Sullivan, you're here? I know he was. Just want to make sure I can still hear you, Jim. Okay, I'm seeing Dave Motherway's eyes move, so I know my internet hasn't locked up. Okay, which amazing the problems we have here. All right, well, we'll work on getting Jim back. First thing, the first item of business is comments from the public, and there was a comment that was received after the start of the meeting time, so we will read that at the next Board of Finance meeting due to receiving it after the start of the town meeting. Other than that, I have no comments. Are there any public on the in the meeting in the WebEx that would like to make a comment? Okay, hearing none, we'll have no comments from the public for this one. Next item on the agenda is approval of previous minutes. We have 2 sets of minutes. We'll do them one by one. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes of April 29th, 2020 meeting of the Board of Finance?
So moved.
Okay, I had a motion from Lynn. Do I have a second?
Second, Deb Norman.
Okay, are there any discussion of these modified minutes? Hearing none.
Tim, sorry.
Go ahead, Mike. Yep.
Yeah, one change, Mike. One change, page 6. Down towards the bottom. I mean, the second last paragraph. Where there was a quote from me, but I think I said presumably rather than assuming. Or you can maybe delete. Presumably. Fine. That works.
Okay, that you kind of broke up a little bit there, Mike.
Oh, okay. Sorry, towards the bottom of page 6. Can you delete assumingly? I don't think that word was captured correctly.
No, I'm on chapter 6, page 6.
Second paragraph up.
Okay. Hi, Mike. This is Jill. Did I just hear you say correctly on the bottom of page 6, you would like the word assumingly removed from the paragraph that starts with your comment?
Correct.
Okay. Yep. Got it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Jill. Any other corrections from board members? Okay, hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Is anyone opposed? Okay, those minutes are approved. Now, can I get a motion to approve the August 5th, 2020 meeting minutes?
So moved.
Bob with a motion. Can I get a second?
Second.
I had heard Mike Fauerbach first, and I will remind members to identify yourself when you speak so that we can get the minutes correct. So I had a motion and a second. Any discussion on the August 5th meeting minutes? Any corrections or changes anyone wanted to make? Okay, hearing nothing. All in favor of approval, please say aye.
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 Thanks, Dave. Any opposed? Those meeting minutes are approved. All right, good deal. New business, appointment of the new assessor director. So Patty is on the phone with us, and Dave Motherway was part of the interview committee, so he will be abstaining from the vote here. But Patty, I'm going to ask you to take this over and go ahead and go through the process and the person that you are recommending, please.
Okay. Just to be clear to everyone, is pursuant to the Charter Chapter 8, Section 8.1 of the Town Charter, the Assessment Department shall have a director who shall be appointed by the majority vote of the Board of Finance. And this is to replace the current Director of Assessment, Marcia Standish, who is retiring on October 1st. So with that backdrop, I do want to provide a little bit of background on the recruitment process. There have been many lead assessor positions opened across the state this year due to impending retirements, and filling these roles has been difficult and very competitive, as it's a very specialized and niche skill set. I've been told of 2 other towns whose assessor positions remained open almost a year. So I have to say I was a bit worried going into this recruitment for the critical role for Stonington to replace Marcia. But having said that, I'm very excited to tell you about the candidate we have found. And before getting into her impressive background, we did do in-person, socially distant interviews that included myself, the first selectman, Dave Motherway from the Board of Finance, and an experienced assessor from another coastal town who agreed to help us with our recruitment process. And our current Director of Assessment, Marcia Standish, was present to answer questions. So we're very excited to bring forward an outstanding candidate for the position of Director of Assessment for the town of Stonington, Jennifer Lynn Weaver. I will say everyone on the interview panel was very impressed with her background, and here is why. She is currently the Deputy Assessor for the town of East Hartford, a position she has held for a year. As Deputy Assessor in East Hartford, she directly manages 3 employees in that office, and during her time in East Hartford, she assisted with the hiring and all of the training for 3 different new employees in the Assessor Department. Prior to that role, she was the Assistant Assessor for the town of Groton for 4 years, so she's quite familiar with Stonington, having held the position in Groton. As you are aware, Groton is a very complex town from an assessor perspective, given it has a United States Navy submarine base, Yukon Navy Point, substantial military housing, waterfront, airport, marinas, shipping piers, very diverse in terms of housing, has 2 Fortune 100 companies. At Groton, Jennifer worked hand in hand with the town assessor, so she had broad and diverse exposure and responsibilities. As she served as second in command in the office, it was a supervisory role to the 3 employees in the assessor's office. Prior to Groton, she spent 6 years as the assessor for the town of Canterbury and 4 years as the assessor for the town of Sterling. Both of these towns are smaller rural communities, but provided Jennifer with great experiences and unique challenges to learn and build her assessing skills. She has worked on and been involved with 5 reevaluations. She has good experience with a variety of software tools and systems and is very technology savvy. Jennifer is a member of the Connecticut Association of Assessing Officers, CAAO, and she is currently the co-chair of the Legislative Committee of the CAAO. This committee works to represent municipalities across Connecticut regarding legislation relating to assessment and tax, and regularly meets with legislators in the Connecticut Conference of Municipalities to offer technical assistance and ensure all new legislation is workable from an administrative standpoint. She is also the head moderator for the University of Connecticut Assessor School. In addition to all of her technical assessor skills, she exhibited strong communication skills, as well as leadership skills to lead the assessor department here in Stonington. She is a certified Connecticut Assessor 2, which is a requirement for the position. I wanted to give you a few quotes from others who were part of the interview panel. I see a couple of their names here, so they can add things afterwards. But obviously, the first selectman felt she was a very strong candidate and was excited we could attract someone of her caliber to Stonington. As mentioned, while Marcia Standish did not interview, but she was present for the interview, she said Jennifer's background and experience will provide a smooth transition for the department and for Stonington taxpayers. I have confidence in her ability to fill the position and to work with the administration, management, and the Board of Finance in a professional manner. The other town assessor who participated in the interview said, "You were lucky to have Jennifer available to fill Marcia's position, as Jennifer is one of the most talented certified assessors in Connecticut. Her resume is impressive, with special attention towards her role as chair of our assessors legislative committee." And her co-chair on the legislative committee was one of her references and said, "While Marcia Standish is certainly a tough act to follow, I can think of no better replacement than Jennifer Lynn Weaver in terms of the unique challenges the Stonington position carries." Upon approval, she would become the Director of Assessment effective October 2nd, 2020. So with that, I will open it to other people who may have comments who were part, I know Dave and others who were part of the interview panel.
I guess the first one I would like to open it up to personally is to Marcia. I know that she is on the line, and I would love to hear her input, please.
I was very impressed that we were able to get somebody like Jennifer. So as I said, I have all the confidence that she'll be able to work well with the department and with her background. Certainly, I know I'll be able to spend some time with her going over some of the details of the office, and she's always very receptive to that and bringing the department forward. So I'm really very pleased that we did have her as a candidate.
Dave Motherway, do you want to add anything part of the interview?
Yeah, I think that Patty did a nice job of summarizing and Marcia reinforcing it. But one of the things that she stated during the interview, which struck a chord with me, was that she recognized she'd been doing this for some time, but she had another 20 years to give, and Stonington was the type of place she wanted to do that. And that was a great message.
Great. Are there others on the line or who are called in or connected to the meeting who would like to provide feedback at this time?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you, Danielle. Go ahead.
Just to echo that, I think we all know Marcia leaves very large shoes to be filled, and similar to what David and Patty said, Jennifer seems like she holds a really similar passion for her work. I think she mentioned her attention to detail, and she's going to kind of give above and beyond, similar to what Marcia did. So yeah, I just think she really stood out as a great candidate. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Danielle. Are there others who would like to offer a comment? Okay. Hearing none, can I get a motion to appoint, hang on a second, I gotta go to my other notes. Sorry. How did I close it? There we go. Can I get a motion to appoint Jennifer Lane Weaver to the position of Director of Assessment for the town of Stonington effective October 2nd, 2020?
So moved. Abstention.
Can I get a second?
Glenn Frischman, second.
Second, motion by Bob, second by Glenn. Discussion by members of the Board of Finance. Any questions of Patty or anything? Okay, hearing no questions, I'm going to do a roll call vote here so that we're sure everyone has voted who's allowed to. Glenn Frischman, your vote?
Yay.
Glenn is a yay. Mike Fauerbach.
Yay.
Mike's a yay. Lynn Young.
Yay.
Lynn is a yay. Bob Stachin.
Yay.
Bob is a yay. Deb Norman.
Yay.
Deb is a yay. Dave Motherway. Asked to abstain. And myself, Tim O'Brien, is a yay. So unanimously passed for the appointment of the new assessor. I would also like to take this time to publicly thank Marcia Standish for her years of service for the town. The town is in such a good place because we have quality people like you here, and it is with big shoes. I think Patty was right, big shoes that Jennifer has to fill. But we appreciate your years of service and dedication to this town and all that you have done. And I hope you can enjoy your last week and a day as I'm reading the calendar. And don't be a stranger to us because we're sure going to miss you. So thanks, Marcia.
Well, thank you very much. And it's been a pleasure working with all of you as well, and all the boards over the years that I've had the opportunity to work with. So thank you again.
Thanks, Marcia. Okay, next item of business is a bid waiver request from IT for network switches from Total Communications. Can I get a motion for the bid waiver approval for Total Communications for network switches for a total of $39,622.08?
Glenn Frischman, so moved.
Lynn Young, second.
Lynn Young with the second. Discussion. Roger, do you want to go over this?
As in the letter that you got sent, it's one of those things where we've had these devices in many areas of our network, whether it be at the garage, here at Town Hall, Police Department, or Human Services, that we've been reusing these devices, moving them around. Some of them are very old, like I said, dated. The oldest one was installed in 2007. They are the backbone of our network infrastructure. They connect every computer system, every backup system, every phone, and every new device we want to connect into our network and bring them all together. So without quality devices that are within a warranty period or serviceable, we're really running on borrowed time. So we really do need to get these things replaced.
And Roger, I know this is coming off the state bid list. Have we used these guys before?
We have. Total Communications was the vendor we chose, I believe it was a year or so ago, to install our brand new core switches at both data centers at Town Hall and the Police Department, as well as installing our brand new VMware virtual service system and our Datto backup system and our pure networking storage system. So they were the guys who actually came in and sorted it all out and installed it for us.
Questions from Board of Finance members?
I got one. So this was in last year. We put this in the budget, right? For this year, this is just the bid waiver. It's not additive, right?
This is just a bid waiver, Lynn. We're using our first SIP money to make the purchase for these switches. You may remember it may have been in a SIP program last year for Town Hall with the cameras, because if we moved forward with just cameras at Town Hall, we would have needed new switches at the same time. We're currently going to be able to replace the switches now with the current SIP funds, with the bid waiver, of course, for this fiscal year we're in now. That'll allow us to add cameras next year without having the switches in that SIP project.
Okay.
Other questions from Board of Finance members? None? Okay. All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 Anyone opposed, please state their name and that they're opposed. Hearing none, motion unanimously carries. Bid waiver is approved. Thanks, Roger.
Thank you all. Appreciate it.
Not that you can go anywhere, but.
Right.
Next item on the agenda is request from Stonington Police Department for a bid waiver to equip the new cruiser allotment from Strobes and Moore for a total of $37,740.66. Can I get a motion to approve the bid waiver for Strobes and Moore for $37,740.66?
So David Motherway, so moved.
Dave made the motion.
Second.
Norman got a second. I see Lieutenant Schneider is on. Let's have discussion. Lieutenant Schneider, you want to go over this one for us, please?
Sure. This is the pretty standard setup for our cruisers. We do the one administrative vehicle followed by 3 patrol vehicles. There's 4 quotes associated with each vehicle there for the total of the 4 cars purchased. And then in addition, we have one other quote for light bars. And that's simply because I'm not sure exactly what vehicle that light bar is going to fall onto. We use Strobes and More because they're a local vendor. Once they're upfit, inevitably there's going to be some technical glitches, and it's easy to bring them back to Westerly rather than heading up to Meriden to follow up where we actually purchased the vehicle. So it's very convenient, and they're pretty competitively priced with the MHQ.
Thank you, Lieutenant Schneider. Are there any questions from Board of Finance members for him?
Just one quick question for Lieutenant Schneider. So I know we've used Strobes and More for a number of years now. I don't have any of the historical documents immediately in front of me. I mean, is their pricing remain fairly steady? I know you said it was competitive, but how does that, roughly 10,000 per vehicle compare to where we've been in prior years on that uplift?
Yeah, so they're once in a blue moon, I'll find that pieces of equipment may be offered cheaper off the state bid list, but by a very marginal amount. And their labor rates are extremely well placed at $65 an hour, where I believe MHQ is even higher than that. So we usually, when I look at it, come out equally priced. If not, we're very close to what MHQ would do from a state bid standpoint.
So would you say, I mean, it's been fairly steady year over year? I mean, we didn't pay like 8,500 last year, and now suddenly we're 10.
Yeah, so again, yes, we are even across the board from year to year. And the part of the increase is associated with the new model design, and that requires us to go out and get different prisoner containment systems. It's like, it's pretty frustrating every time they do a redesign that we have to go out and buy equipment that'll actually fit the new design. So that's part of that reason for the increase.
Okay. All right. Yeah. No, I'm just curious. I mean, I understand the logic of using someone locally, and it sounds like you had very good luck with Strobes and More. But just as I mean, we get into year after year after year, as we stick with companies, at some point it may be worth doing to make sure that we're where we believe we are. But yeah, it sounds like you did that kind of offline yourself. So appreciate the additional.
Yeah, and certainly moving forward, I can give you a cost comparison to show you exactly where we're at in the future.
Okay, thanks.
Other questions for Lieutenant Schneider? Okay, hearing none, we'll take the vote for the bid waiver request. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, please identify yourself and say you're opposed. Hearing none, that motion unanimously passes. Thanks, Lieutenant Schneider.
Thank you as well.
All right, next bid waiver request. We have a request from the Director of Public Works. Could I get a motion to approve the bid waiver for the purchase of road salt from Morton Salt at $63 per ton?
Lynn Young, so moved.
Bob Statchin, second.
A motion from Lynn, second from Bob. Discussion, Barbara, I know you're online. This is our usual salt request, I believe.
No, this is, I come to you annually, and first I want to make you all aware that there is a slight error. The cost per ton is actually $63.88. So I apologize, but it's still less. I have $63, but it's $63.88. And I just want to, although the leaves are still on the trees and the asphalt plant's still open, DPW is preparing for winter. We're back again. We are requesting your approval to use the CROG bid. We'll be purchasing Ice Be Gone from Morton Salt, which we have done in previous years. It's been a very successful product, and Morton has been a very reliable company providing us the material. Typically, depending on the winter.
Let me interrupt you for 1 second, because I think what we need to do first is we need to withdraw the motion that was made and then make a new motion. So I didn't write down who made the motion, whether it was.
It's Lynn Young. I'll withdraw the motion and make a new motion for the $63.88.
Thank you, Lynn. Can I get a second on that?
Bob Statchin, I'll second that one as well.
Thank you, Bob. Okay, Barbara, go ahead and continue now with the Morton Salt, please.
Okay, so we looked at the last 3 years of salt use, and depending on the winter season, we can spend from $60,000 to $100,000 in procurement of salt and placement of salt on the roadways. Last year, we spent about $71,000 for road salt. So that's all that I've got.
Thanks, Barbara. Are there any questions for Board of Finance members for Barbara about this one?
I just have a general question. Barbara, does that salt come in from the port in New London?
Tom Curioso will answer.
Hi, Lynn. It's Tom Curioso.
Hey, Tom.
Actually, it gets distributed out of New Haven, Gateway Terminal in New Haven. And the error on the price was a pickup price for $63 a ton, which is not cost effective in any way for 88 cents a ton for us to go to New Haven and pick it up. So we've had good luck with them on deliveries, and I really have had no issues. Most of it is actually, it centers out of the northeastern United States and central United States, and they ship it on barges up the river, obviously, and then either the ports, which for us is Gateway in New Haven.
Okay. All right. So we're not going to get jammed up when the port starts making windmills and whatnot, right?
No, it shouldn't affect us in any way.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Tom, it's Mike Bobick. I'm just curious, what happened to, I assume there was leftover salt last year. Did we just store that and therefore we don't have to order as much this year? Or what happened with last year?
That's correct. We have our salt dome. It's approximately how full?
Right now it's probably about 2/3 full. It holds around 700 tons of salt. We don't like to keep it any more full than that. With the reason being, if it's out from the door, it could leach out and get into the storm system.
How many times do we fill that thing in an average winter?
I'd say 2 good fills. So if we're going to 1,100, 1,200 ton, 1,300 ton, it's been hard the last 3 years with this average because that's reflected in the price. We were paying around $73.52 in 2017. Now we're paying $63.88 because the demand has gone down.
Right.
So it's weather dependent. So we've had winters where you probably put in 2,000 tons. But probably in 2013, 14, we had the blizzards.
Yeah.
We're probably hitting it pretty hard.
Okay. And how much is in our budget for road salt?
Well, for materials in total, we have $145,000, but that also includes the consumable items, plow blades, plow bolts, spreader chains, the things that we use in the winter operations. So It's not all salt.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions from Board of Finance members? Okay, we'll go to a vote. All in favor of approval of the bid waiver, please say aye.
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 Anyone opposed, please state your name and that you're opposed. Bid waiver unanimously passes. All right, next item on the agenda is an additional appropriation, request from the Director of Public Works for an additional appropriation. Can I get a motion to approve an additional appropriation of $40,000 for the Director of Public Works to engage an engineering firm to prepare plans for the Town Hall HVAC system?
It's Lynn Young, so moved.
Can I get a second?
Mike Bobick.
I heard Mike Fauerbach first, so I'm going to go with Mike on the second. Thank you all for jumping in. Barbara, do you want to go through this one of the appropriation?
I'll give you a brief overview. DPW recently completed an assessment with a consultant of the town hall HVAC system. It identified many deficiencies, but the most critical that came to our attention is that the building lacks ventilation on the second floor of the building. So that means there's no means to bring any outdoor air into the second floor. There's no ventilation system. I brought this to the attention, reviewed this with the first selectman, and we made the determination that this work is urgent. Therefore, we're coming to you as a request to obtain services from a design consultant. So this funding will be used to complete design work. It'll be used to look at testing in walls on the second floor for asbestos, and it'll include the installation of a second floor system and some improvements to the first and third floor systems. The construction for this project could range from $50,000 to $100,000. It's hard for us to we could give you a hard number for the HVAC components, but it's hard to put a hard number on the entire project because it's dependent on the number of walls with asbestos that we're going to have to cut into. What we anticipate is the need to put in a fresh air unit up in the attic of the building, an energy recovery unit, which is kind of a fancy word for an air handler. That air handler unit, that unit will then pull air in. We'll have a duct that comes down through the top floor to the second floor, and then we will have visible ducting that will be installed on the second floor because there is no space between the there's basically no space between the third floor and the second floor to put any ducting in between the ceiling and the flooring. This work will also have to be done after hours, and that will also impact the cost of completing the work. So that's the end of my description. If if you have any further questions, we'd be happy to answer.
I have one. Barbara, why can't you run the vents in the attic and just drop, the vent and the returns in each office space?
That'd be the third floor.
I don't. So the second floor there's no ventilation or ductwork or anything on the second floor.
No, when you say the second floor, you mean Danielle's floor. I think of that as the first floor. Okay, never mind.
And the second floor, the heat and the air conditioning are now provided by split units that are mounted on the walls. And each of those units has no ability, does not provide any ventilation system. If we were building this building now, we would currently not be compliant with the code for ventilation systems in buildings.
Other questions from Board of Finance members?
I have one last one. The cost to study this can cost as much as doing it?
Well, we think that the cost for the consultant to do the work is estimated at $25,000. We estimate that there could be up to $10,000 for doing asbestos sampling. And we also estimate that there's a potential need to do some demolition prior to construction to see existing conditions in the building and where we're going to be able to run the duct from the attic to the second floor of the building. So it's not just design work. It's exploratory work in the building. We don't have detailed plans of the building construction. All we have for plans for this building are recent HVAC upgrades. Well, not really that recent. They were done in 2004. And so those are the most recent plans we have for this building. And those are basically floor plans that show HVAC improvements that were made on the top floor and the bottom floor of this building. But in 2004, they opted not to do ventilation on the second floor. Since that time, 16 years ago, it's become a code requirement that ventilation is a requirement for all office buildings.
Barbara, it's Mike. You just said something that made me think about the asbestos issue for a second. So back when they did the work in 2004, did they run in or find any asbestos?
Well, I know that we have asbestos well, when I started I think about 6 years ago, I did the flooring project in Town Hall, and as a result of that, I had to move some doors. And so I am certain that there is asbestos in the main lobby walls. And at that time, we had to do enclosures and work during off hours for us to be able to cut holes in those walls. So potentially, when we bring the ductwork down from the attic, when we bring the supply line down from the attic, we're going to have to cut holes in every wall in the hallway into the offices to pull in a duct to have the ability to provide ventilation in that space.
Okay. So, well, all right. I was trying to get a sense for what the odds are, whether or not we'd be dealing with asbestos.
I'm 100% certain that we're going to hit asbestos.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
So, Barbara, what's the heat that goes into that floor?
It's provided by the split units.
Oh, they do both.
And actually, I'm sorry. And there's actually the same heating system is on that floor that's in the rest of the building.
Which is what? Does it use ductwork?
Radiant hot water.
Huh. Well, there's not much choice then.
Barbara, the one question I'm going to ask is because I built the building and the balance was out of whack. They're going to be looking, the engineering firm you're going to engage is going to be looking at the ventilation, air, and the heat demands and the balance between those two, correct?
Yes.
I'm just saying heat, but it'll also be air conditioning as well, because that's where my building, that balance got way out of whack because we were doing so many air changes. The stress on the HVAC system, it couldn't keep up. So as long as they're looking at that too, I don't have an issue.
Yeah, because some of the other things that they identified too was the on the bottom floor, they determined that there's an undersized outdoor air duct for the fresh air on the basement floor. Yep. And they also made recommendations to clean the ductwork, and then at that same time, we will look at balancing all of the ventilation in the building, and also the unit that we're going to be putting on in the attic is the energy recovery unit, so it will have a heat coil in it, so the fresh air that we bring in during the winter will be heated. Yep. So we won't have our boiler competing with the fresh air intake.
Okay.
Barbara, are we doing this for COVID reasons? Or else, or otherwise, why now?
Yeah, so COVID recommendations, there's, I've been researching it. I haven't been able to find anything that says it's a requirement, but COVID recommendations say that all office buildings should actually, it's assumed that they all already have a 15% ventilation system that's taking in 15% fresh air. And they're making recommendations that 15% is increased to 25%. And so we're at the state with Town Hall where the second floor has zero ventilation. And so we have no ability, so we're currently not compliant, nor do we have the ability to increase it to meet the COVID requirements.
So could we, if the feds ever get off their you-know-whats and get money out, could we use that reimbursement for this? Because it's a COVID thing?
We could possibly, yes.
But that's the reason that that it's coming up now. It's COVID.
Yes, that's the reason. That's the reason that we looked at it as an urgent request.
Okay.
Other questions from Board of Finance members? Jim Sullivan, this would be the first additional, I believe, for this fiscal. Is that correct? Do we have Jim still?
Jim, are you muted? He's showing up here.
Yeah, he's not showing as muted. Well, we'll go on. All in favor of the additional appropriation, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Anyone opposed, please state your name and that you're opposed. Motion unanimously carries. All right, thanks, Barbara. Let me, because I need Jim Sullivan for this. Danielle, are you in town hall?
I'm running up the stairs right now.
Thank you. While
Is
we're
Jill
waiting,
still with us?
what's that?
Is Jill still on?
She's on.
I'm
just
still
listening.
here.
Yep, she's
Oh,
here.
you're still there. Okay.
Okay.
Yep, I'm here. I'm down in the basement.
Well,
otherwise known as the first floor.
We've got Jim here.
Okay, great. Thanks, Danielle. Jim, we're on to review of year-to-date additional appropriations for fund balance for fiscal 1920.
Well, you're going out of order, aren't they? Okay. All right. Can you hear me, Tim?
Yep, I can hear you now.
Okay. Additional appropriations.
Yeah, we just did Barbara's, and that was approved, and that's our first additional appropriation for this fiscal, correct?
Yes. That and,
Okay.
that and there's a second one on the list too that you're.
I don't have that on the agenda that I have in front of me.
Oh, you don't have the revised agenda, perhaps? Did you get the revised agenda?
I might not have. Hang on. I had 3 different agendas.
Yeah, me too. The second one is the sidewalks?
Yes.
Where did that come from?
Request from First Select Woman requested it just.
No, sorry. Oh, okay, I got it here. Jill, I got Jill's email here. Okay. Sorry. Okay. Let me just make sure we didn't miss anything. That's there. Public Works. Okay. Sorry. I will go on this agenda now, which is the one I was supposed to. The next item on the agenda is a request. Can I get a motion to approve an additional appropriation from the First Select Woman for $130,000 to engage an engineering firm for the Pawcatuck Sidewalk project?
It's Lynn Young, so moved.
Glenn Frischman, second.
I have a motion and a second. Discussion. Danielle, did we lose you in the Jim move, or are you still here?
I know I'm here. I'm going to let Sue give a bigger overview, but just to say that we're obviously really excited. This is part of a required local match that we'll have to do to get our $600,000 from the state anyways, and I think it works out hopefully well that this is the amount that BNL needs to go from that 30%, which we had already funded previously, to get to the 90% design mark. But I'll let Sue come in here with a few more details on the proposal from BNL. Thank you.
Hi there, it's Susan Cullen. So just as a little bit of backdrop, when I came into the job in May, we had 30% plans for the Pawcatuck Sidewalk Project, which has been, sort of long regarded as one of our higher priorities along Route 1. And there seems to be a lot of public engagement and public excitement that the sidewalks are finally coming. So that's really great. We did get through the Urban Act, through OPM, $600,000 towards our overall sidewalk program. And so when you look at the budget that we have to put together to be able to show them of the estimates that we have to build these sidewalks, we have 2 years to build them. So it's actually a pretty quick turnaround that we have to get this money spent. So the first step in doing that is to get these plans from 30% to 90% so that we can get further into the design, and then we'll be able to approach, there are between 20 and 28 property owners that will have to approach for easements and rights of entry. So the design is very important for us to get to immediately, basically, because we need to go ahead and know how we're impacting those different properties and what we're going to be able to do on each of those properties with each specific owner. So we've already been in touch with the utilities along that route with Eversource and Frontier, and the duplicate poles that are out there are going to be removed. But so far, we're not in a position where we have to move a lot of poles or utilities. There are actually a few guy wires that may have to move. But if we can go forward just the way we are, it's actually the very efficient way to do it. So what we're asking for tonight is for the $130,000 to take our 30% plans to 90% and be able to engage B&L immediately and sign their contracts so that we can move this project forward quickly. Later on in the SIP, you will see additional money because the overall project estimated this time is about $950,000. And so what that includes is their 600, this 130, but there's also some contingency money in there. There's $58,000 in contingencies, which we're required to show in the budget. They also asked us to show some of our own salary and administrative money. So a little bit of money will actually come back to us as well. So the number sounds bigger than it actually is, and it may get smaller if we're super efficient and lucky in terms of the contingencies. So that's pretty exciting. We're getting a lot of traction and a lot of phone calls. I'm already getting actually calls asking people if we're bidding the project. So people are pretty excited about the project. And we'd like to move it forward as quickly as we can because I said there's only a 2-year time horizon. So that 2 years actually started to click at the moment that they approved this funding. So we have to be aware of that as well. So time is ticking.
So we don't actually have the funding?
We will be reimbursed for each, just as any other federal reimbursement program. We spend the money, we put together the bills, and then we have a specific set of architectural forms that we put together, an application for payment, G702 form, making sure that people don't have, they couldn't put a lien on something. So there's a whole set of process that we go through because this is a program that's done through DECD. I'm very familiar with these programs. It's something that I've done for many years. So a lot of the paperwork and the process is identical.
But this is a state grant, isn't it?
But that money, a lot of that money through OPM comes down through DECD. And so because of the types of money and the amount of money, you're still going to be dealing with some certain conditions in terms of bidding, prevailing wages, because you're above a certain amount of money that you're doing. So it's important to follow the process and the paperwork very carefully. They've already given us all of the instructions that we have to follow. So we want to make sure that we do, all the right things.
What's the time frame for the reimbursement then?
They typically turn it around pretty quickly. They can actually, I think they probably have, I'm not sure I know the exact answer to that, but in the past when I've dealt with it, the reimbursements have usually come in within 30 days. I don't know if perhaps Jim has a better read on that than I do, but I've never really had a problem with them reimbursing quickly of the town being out of, a great deal of money for any amount of time because they track it through their administrative systems. So.
Okay, so it's dependent on us when we issue the bills.
Yes, we issue the bill. We put together a very specific set of application for payment. There's a very specific process that you go through and a form that you fill out. It links right into the scope of work. And for every line and every paragraph in the scope of work, there's an amount of money. And we say at what percentage we've paid them. We show the bill that we've used, the contractor that we've used, their invoicing. It's very paperwork heavy. But it does give them a very good idea of what we've paid for, when, why, and we also get lien waivers along the way to make sure that you weren't, getting lien put on something that would be inappropriate.
Yeah, so we really have no idea, though, still what this total project's going to cost, right?
Well, I guess until we get into the project and we get closer to the 100% design, not exactly, but we do have fairly good estimates, and the 30% design that we have do include a lot of the things that would be really expensive, like utility pole relocations or wall relocations. We know there are certain things that we have to do. There's a certain amount of wetland work that has to be done in terms of reviewing the wetlands in certain areas and permitting for that. So some of those things that we've already been able to account for in the 30% design. So I think the most expensive of the items has already been accounted for. So I think this is a pretty good estimate to begin with. And then once we get to the 90%, we'll know a little bit more.
Yeah, but we don't lose the grant if we don't complete the project because we need, much more money to do it, right? All we have to do is spend it in 2 years.
We have to expend it within the 2 years. Yes, that is correct. And we will have to go through the appropriate process to complete the design, go out for specific, with each specific property owner, we may need a right of entry. We may need a permanent easement, depending on what we're putting on their property. And we meet with them directly. But part of what the design is that you meet with each property owner to tell them what the before and the after is going to look like. And so that will be helpful. We can actually show them when we sit down with them of what particular thing specifically is going to happen on their property. Right now we have a fairly good concept of that, but it's not exact.
And if they say no, doesn't impact the grant? If
they say no, it doesn't impact the grant. Okay. We can actually do this. The sidewalk runs for the, we want sidewalks obviously on the north and the south side. With this amount of money, we're not going to get the full run on both sides. So what we can do though is we can make a big impact and hopefully make at least a complete run on one side and do a decent portion of the other. So, we'll have to see how far we can take it. And those bigger design plans are going to help us to sort of hone in on exactly what we need to talk to with each of these property owners.
So this 130 isn't going to grow, right?
No, the 130 isn't going to grow because this is a contract we already have. We just haven't signed it yet. And so this is the price that they've given us for the 90% plans.
Okay, and the grant amount was $500 or $600?
The grant amount is $600,000, which is great because the Urban Act funds are actually larger than some of the other grants and things that we would be eligible for. So this is actually one of the biggest amounts of money we could get for this type of project. If we'd done it through some of the others, it actually would have been significantly less. So it's kind of a coup to have gotten it.
Okay, great. Thank you for the very coherent explanation.
No problem.
Other questions from Board of Finance?
Yes, Norman, I just have a quick question for Susan. Do you know how many property owners you have to speak to?
It's between 20 and 28. So once we get back the final design, we'll know exactly how many people that it's going to impact. So it'll be between that number. This is something I actually have a lot of experience with. When we did phase 2 of the Mystic Streetscape in Groton, I was the person who negotiated all of the rights of entry and easements, and for all of the streetscape too.
Thank you.
Other questions from Board of Finance members?
Tim, I got a question. Just technically, this 130, can we use the $1 million that comes back from WPCA into the SIP for this? Can you hear me?
This is Jim speaking. We can use that. We can use that money, but we're not going to be able to transfer that money around until after January 1st.
Well, yeah, we need to have this right now. We can't wait.
Sue, you're muted.
Lynn, I'm not following you. What do you? I'm sorry.
Hang on, Mike. Hang on, Mike, 1 second. Hang on, Mike, 1 second. Sue, go ahead. Can you answer the timeliness question, please?
He's muted. Oh, there we go.
I'm sorry, with all the muting and unmuting, I didn't actually hear the question.
The question was, can we wait until after January 1 to get these funds because we could do some SIP reallocation, or do you need them sooner, in which case we need to do it with a different mechanism?
I need them now. And the reason why is because that 2 years is already ticking. The 2 years started to actually tick at the moment that the money was, that the bond authorization was done. So that day was our day one.
What day was that?
We let that go until January 1st. We're going to lose almost 3 months of time of work on the project.
Thank you.
Tim?
Go ahead, Danielle.
Just to say, I'll triple check with Jim, but I believe we can borrow the money essentially from an existing line item and then after January reimburse it through the WPCA SIP money coming back.
Right.
Because otherwise we're going to be right up to, very close to, our additional appropriations, won't we? With the one we just put in.
Yeah.
Okay.
Jim Sullivan, can you comment to that, please?
Yeah, if we're sure that come January, when we can transfer this money, that the Board of Finance will be able to actually fund that project in arrears, I would have no problem going forward with that. And the answer, Lynn's inquiry, I guess, what would the 40,130 do to our ability to, the board to make additional appropriations in 2021? That would bring us up to 170,000, which would leave only 187,000 for the rest of the year that the board would be able to do without going to town meeting.
Well, so here's a question then. So the AC unit, didn't we leave like $1 in there or something so we can do a SIP transfer after January 1 for that too? Not for the 40,000 we just did, or whatever it was, but for the actual work itself.
Give me a minute. Give me a second.
Tim, you understand what I'm saying, right?
Yeah, no, actually we zeroed it out, but that's neither here nor there was $1 or not. You can do a transfer regardless and just create a new line.
Okay, we can do that then.
Yeah, we can fund that, and I don't want to go too far down that route, but yeah, for that actual work, we can look at that, what the number comes in at and what we're going to do, and we can look at some line item transfer, but I think we're going to have to start prioritizing stuff because it's going to, potentially could start adding up, but we'll keep an eye on that. So for right now, Jim, then given that we'd be looking to kind of transfer this out in arrears, do we want to remove the request for an additional appropriation or?
Yeah, I would.
Well, we can have a sense, Mr. Chairman, we can have a sense of the board that we will, appropriately fund it via transfer so that we can expend the money now. authorize the Director of Finance to
Yeah, you want me to
expend
withdraw the
the
motion?
funds from a different line.
Well,
and
let
state
me, we're still in discussion. So Glenn, I'll ask you, what is your feeling on it?
I would rather not draw down our ability to do supplementals, rather take a sense of the board that we will fund this in arrears, and come January 1st, we'll make the appropriate transfers to replenish whatever lines Finance Director recommends we take that 130K from. This way
Mike
we
Fauerbach,
preserve our 100%.
that sounds good, Glenn. Mike Fauerbach, what's your
Yeah,
feeling?
I'm in the same way. I think it's a prudent move. I think we'll have flexibility down the road. So I support that.
Lynn?
I definitely do.
Bob?
Yep, I concur with that.
Deb, Norman?
Yes, I support it.
And Dave Motherway?
Yeah, 100%.
Okay. So then I think, Lynn, you made the motion, I believe.
I'll withdraw the motion.
And we'll withdraw the motion. And Jim Sullivan, you have the sense of the board that will fund it in arrears after January 1?
Yes.
Okay. And you can work out with the first selectman and with Sue how we're going to do that and keep them moving forward, right?
Yes, very good. We'll take care of that.
Great. Thank you, Jim. All right. Next item on the agenda is review of year-to-date additional appropriations. Oh, thank you, Sue, too, by the way. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Sue.
And one more thing, Tim. Did you already approve the 40,000 additional appropriation for?
We did approve that one for the DPW.
Do you want to do the same thing? Do you want to withdraw that one and do the same thing? Or do you want to leave that one alone?
We already voted and approved it, so I don't know that we can withdraw it after an approval vote.
I'd probably just leave that one alone.
Yeah, it's 40,000. That's one thing.
So I think that one we have to leave, but this was a good catch to not to do it this way so that we have some flexibility.
Very good.
Now we're on to review of year-to-date additional appropriations for fiscal 1920. You have no changes from last meeting. Are we keeping this on the agenda, Jim, because we haven't closed the books on fiscal 1920?
Yes.
Okay, but there's no change at this point?
No change at this point. And I don't expect there will be, but until the books are closed, I'm just going to leave it open.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that was why it was still on the agenda. And then obviously we just made our first additional appropriation for fiscal 2021, so there's none to date there. So those two are set. Next item on the agenda is review of Board of Ed monthly line item transfers and global budget report. Jim, do you want to take this one?
Well, didn't see any. We haven't seen any transfers, but there's a global report for July and let's see, July and August. So we don't have a global report for June 20 yet. So the Board of Ed is still closing out their books as well. But if there's any questions about July or August, actually I don't see any transfers for July. I don't see anything for August yet. No transfers for either of those months.
Yep.
Jim, it's Mike. When can we reasonably expect the fiscal year end, end of June report to be available?
Well, we got 2 new people in our office. Finance is swamped. I can't speak for the Board of Ed. Last time I spoke to Gary 2 weeks ago, he couldn't give me a date. Hopefully by the end of October.
Okay, all right. Yeah, I mean, the Board of Ed one is the one I mentioned, but yeah. Okay, and then I guess maybe I noted, there were no transfers in July or August. I guess it's not overly surprising, but I mean, there is some work they've got to do there in the Board of Ed. Maybe just go to the very top of the report. I think like the first line is gate revenue from gate receipts. That's not happening. So I imagine at some point they'll be revising their budget accordingly.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think we'll move on from that because there wasn't very much. Next item on the agenda is discussion of a possible resolution to approve an MOU with the Board of Education.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to move we table that item until we are meeting in person in October.
I would actually like to start the discussion now because I think, let me give some background. Jim and I worked on drafting this up, and the discussion here is really to get a sense of the board. The Board of Education has not seen this yet, so this is to get a sense of the Board of Finance. Are we headed the right direction? Do you support what we're trying to put together? And then we'll meet with the Board of Ed to try and negotiate this and make sure that they're on board with it. So we're not trying to adopt this at this time. I'm trying to make sure that we have covered our bases and that we haven't gone off somewhere crazy. So would you support
when you say a non-lapsing fund? I guess the implication that I am drawing is that they never have to account for anything and never have to return any money. I hope that I'm wrong.
No, you're wrong. So what this is to create a fund within the town of Stonington side, within the finance side, that would be reflective of the monies that they have returned, and it is a mechanism for us to return that money to the Board of Education, provided they provide accounting for it and it is approved by the Board of Education, and that this is done in accordance with Connecticut General Statute 10-248A.
So Tim, the non-lapsing part, like let's just say for the sake of argument, they give us back $500,000. The $500,000 goes into that fund. They have COVID, expenses and whatnot. They produce documentation for it. Board of Ed, says okay. Jim Sullivan is the arbiter. He says okay. But at the end of the year, they have $150,000. At the end of the fiscal, they got $150,000 left in it. What happens to that?
That money would drop back down into the general fund.
So non-lapsing. Okay, I'm sorry. Is that Jim?
Yeah, it is. Yeah. He's pretty quiet.
Yeah, I can barely hear you. Can you repeat that?
That would lapse. That money would then, it's actually up to the Board of Finance. You could at that point, you could let it roll another year, or you can just, let it lapse at the end of the year, and then it would drop back down in the fund balance.
Okay, so non-lapsing, we're only talking about governing this 1 year here with this thing?
That's correct. 1 year.
The Board of Finance has the option to renew it at the end of each year.
Okay. All right.
Now,
and
I'd just like to give a caveat. This document was drafted off of another municipalities that I use as a model, and this hasn't been through town council yet to make sure it's still 100% in compliance with any applicable state statutes. So, if the Board of Finance is good with, the general language of this, the next step would be to send it to town council.
Well, this keeps it out of the MBR?
I believe it does, because my proposal is to set it up in a separate fund, that it's not part of the Board of Education general fund account. It'd be under the town offices, and it would be like us, the town general fund, writing a check to pay for a Board of Ed expenditure that would never show up in the Board of Ed budget.
Okay.
So something akin to when we set up that contingency fund a few years ago for a loss.
Sort of, except that this is for a specific purpose, right?
Well, those contingencies were in the town's general fund budget. These would actually be a separate special revenue fund, a reserve fund of sorts.
Okay, but we would still control those funds, Jim.
That is correct.
That's the intent. The way the MOU is written, that's my intent. The town attorney, I think, will be the final arbiter of that.
Okay.
Yeah. I think it does say that statute says that the Board of Ed, once we can say what it's for, but then it's the Board of Ed who governs what, how it's distributed. Yeah, it's not a yay or nay. Once we approve it and set it up, the Board of Ed administers. But they have to follow the rules that we established in the beginning.
Yes. So speaking of those rules, Jim, can we get the Board of Ed or Gary Shuttle or pick your person to conform to the way we requisition payment in town for this? Meaning, what I mean by that is with a purchase order with detail.
I understand what you mean, Lynn, and the answer is I don't know. The town attorney's have to advise me on that.
Okay.
So I guess the sense that I'm getting is that no one is opposed to this, but we really probably at this point need to run it through the town attorney to take a look at it and make sure we haven't stepped somewhere we can't or shouldn't.
Well, Tim,
I concur with your assessment, Mr. Chairman.
Tim, let me just say, I've had a chance to really comment yet, because I just want to make sure we're not making matters more confusing than we need to, just in terms of establishing this fund. And if I read the terms of the sound lapsing fund correctly, it sounds like the objective is for the Board of Ed to first utilize any funds that it receives from either the state or the federal government related to COVID-19 before it draws down the account. And if I've got my information correctly, it looks like we are getting in Stonington, and someone correct me if I don't have this wrong, but from the elementary and secondary school relief fund, we're getting about $280,000, and from the coronavirus relief fund, we're getting about $220,000. So call it $500,000 coming from federal and state sources, which is essentially going to be the value of this account, or the estimated value, $407,000. So are we setting this up and then just, and then we're going to have a lot of administrative back and forth only to not end up using any of the 470 because it's, what the Board of Ed needed, they got through the state or town. Or I guess another way to look at it is I wouldn't want to set up an account, another 470,000 on top of the $500,000 they're getting already. That feels more than what would be needed in a particular circumstance. So,
well, Mike, who's that money come to? Us or them? Town or school?
Jim, do you know the answer to that?
That money goes going directly to the Board of Education, I believe.
Well, then that's a problem right there because there'll be a dislocation as to when the bills are paid and when that money arrives.
Right, so if we get the $500,000 directly from the state and the federal government, I'm just wondering why we need to set up another $500,000 off the side.
Mike, what the intent of this was we had at the time no idea what the state and feds are going to pay or not. I still don't feel that we have a total grasp on what the schools are going to need moving forward. We're seeing districts shutting down and having to go all remote due to COVID cases. This is the money that they're turning back to us, to the town. It's putting it in an account that we could then have a mechanism to offset future costs and that. And it doesn't have to move. We got to work with them to release those funds. So this was a mechanism to do that.
Tim, can we add something in there that I'm sorry.
I want to hear Jim.
Right. There is a provision in here that if the town does front the Board of Education some of this $470,000, and then they get $500,000 in grants, or from the state or the feds, whomever. As long as that money isn't an additional, as long as they didn't spend $970,000, some of that money would have to come back to the town.
So in other words, Jim, if we put $500,000 in and they get $500,000, it cost us nothing.
If they only spend $500,000.
Right. Yeah, that's my concern. Is right. I feel like if we set this up now, we're basically saying they've got $1 million allocated, and that seems like a lot of money without a lot of detail just yet. So truly.
No, they're not. No, because there's a clawback provision. So they only, if we put in $500,000 and they get $500,000 for the same expenditures, the $500,000 they get comes back to the town.
All right, so
there's a clawback provision.
All right, that does come back either way. Well, then we're in a way. Yeah.
Well, I mean, yes, actually, you're correct. If there is $1 million of additional expenditures, then yes, they would get their $500,000 grant, and we would give them the $500,000 from the non-lapsing fund. But if there's only $500,000, and we give them $500,000, and then they get $500,000, that $500,000 would come back to us.
Yeah.
If they got it from the state after the town paid for something.
Again, I'm just wondering whether we're making it more complicated than we need to. We know they're getting $500,000 from the state and federal government, or at least that's what's been published based on what I was reading earlier today. But you know, so we know that that's coming. They can expend those monies for COVID-related matters. Why not just take the 470 that they have back to fund balance, and then they need to spend more than $500,000, more than what the feds and state have provided them at a later date. They come to us and ask for an additional appropriation.
Because we wouldn't be able to give them all of it. Yeah, but we wouldn't be able to give it all to them if that were necessary.
For that amount of money, you have to go to a town meeting, Mike. This just sets it aside and makes it administratively easier to get back to that money.
But all right, I guess under the assumption then we're going north of $500,000. Yeah.
Well, but isn't there a way to cap it?
You can cap it at whatever you like. You can make it 200. You can make it 100. You can make it on our side. You can make it how much ever you want.
Well, but that's what I'm saying. So Mike is right. So they're supposed to get all of these grants because we can now. So once we let it into the general fund, we have no choice because we won't be able to have the capacity to pull it out again. So
right.
So long as it's a pass through, so long as we say it's $500,000 and whatever grant money they get, and maybe it does work like this, and whatever grant money they get either comes back to us automatically, or we get to decide if they get to spend it, then it's all right.
Right. That's exactly what I'm looking for.
Right. I'm not sure, though, that if it's the funds specifically, as this is written, are related to COVID. It really talks about them using this fund. And I think, Lynn, you nailed it as far as the reason we're doing this is to simplify. I mean, because that was my first question when I read it. Why don't we just take the money back? And if they need it, then we give it to them. But it saves that administrative going through a town hearing to give those larger amounts. But I'm not sure as this is written that it is specifically limited to expenses for COVID. But if it does, see in paragraph 6, they talk, the Board of Ed has to authorize the expenditure and they have to report to us what they're expending it for. And if it's not COVID, then there's going to be a question of whether that, if they get funds from COVID, federal funds or state funds or whatever, whether that would be reimbursed in the same way. So I guess I would be curious whether this could specifically be and say that it is meant to be applied to funds that would be related to that and therefore be eligible for the reimbursement that we're talking about.
Well, yeah, because that could be anything.
It's a fenced fund.
But COVID could mean anything too, because money's fungible, right? So it doesn't have to be face masks and Purell. It can be, we needed to add a bus to the route, or we needed to do this, or we needed to do that. So, I personally would want to see this tighter and, sort of specifying kind of what the stuff was. And because, you can pay for something, somewhere else in the budget and then call this
exactly
something that isn't. So
right. Why don't we do this?
Well, what you could do is actually ask the Board of Ed to prepare a schedule of what, likely expenses they think they're going to have above and beyond what they budgeted for due to COVID-19. And say, they give us a schedule and it's $400,000 of items. As those costs are incurred, we can then start, paying for those items when and if they are incurred out of the.
I don't even know what they budgeted. It's hard to know because remember they budget to the bottom line.
Well, let's do this because I think we're gonna come up with a whole lot of what ifs right now. I think the first thing we need to do is put it to the town attorney. Jim has heard kind of the concerns that the board has right now in terms of how do you make sure it's spent for appropriate items and that. And let's put it to the town attorney. We've got another meeting in 2 weeks for the Board of Finance, and let's try and refine it in those 2 weeks and then have a more in-depth discussion at that point. Would that be acceptable to the board members?
I would concur with that.
Yes.
Works for me as well.
Yep, that sounds good.
I agree.
Okay.
I'm sorry, Tim,
So-
did you want this shared with the Board of Education in that time period?
Well, let's you and I talk about it first, because I think the first thing to do is if the town attorney comes back and says, no, this doesn't fly at all, you got to take 3/4 of this out, then there's no sense doing anything.
Okay.
Let's you and I see about what he thinks about it and how we can do that. And then let's see, as a result of that discussion, let's see where we go next.
Okay, very good.
All right. Do we have any correspondence that you know of, Jim?
There is. I think Jill sent it out late. I think we got some late that Jill emailed to everybody. Are you on, Jill?
Yep, I'm here. It's Marcia's letter. Marcia sent it to Tim, and I also included it in the package. It was just a little thanking the board for, for being.
Yep. I gotta find it.
That was the only correspondence.
Okay, thanks, Jill. If members did not get it circulated, I know I sent it to Glenn, who had dealt with Marcia most directly as his years of being chair of the Board of Finance. If other members did not get it, reach out to me and I'll make sure to email it over to you, but you should have gotten it as part of the packet. All right. So now going on to liaison reports, SIP liaison report.
The only thing I really have to say is on October 15th, we're having the big meeting. So we'll see what it's all going to be.
October 15th, you said?
Yep, 10 a.m.
Okay. All right. WPCA, as long as we're still with you, Lynn.
Yep, so we're happy to have the bond money. Naturally needed it before it even came through. WPCA is chugging along. We're trying to, there's so much low flow in the borough that we've had a couple of violations and whatnot. So we're kind of anxiously awaiting the start of the diversion, which should be in May of 2021, really at the earliest, because it will help the borough plant function and, it'll help the borough plant function and, relieve some of the stress for the moratorium. So that's where we are.
Okay.
Lynn, quick question. Why are we getting, so if the borough's low flow, why did they get fined or what, just curious?
Well, we didn't get fined, or unless you know something I don't, but we had some violations because with low flow, the plant wasn't, we had some fecal violations and there was some problems with ammonia and things like that. So it's because it's hard to manage it when it's got a very low flow. You have to keep a very precise calibration of bacteria that do specific functions and whatnot. So if there's any kind of change or, all of a sudden some restaurant, has a lot of grease or something like that goes in there, or who knows what, we don't even know. It can upset that balance very easily when it's a low flow plant.
Gotcha. I just didn't understand why you're getting fined for low flow, but now I do. Thank you.
Oh, no, we're not getting fined. Hold on. We're not getting fined for low flow. The low flow is causing process problems, which is causing a couple of, not a ton of them, but has caused a couple of violations. We have not been fined yet.
Okay,
or
got it.
Notice of them. We just know they happened.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, Lynn. Board of Ed liaison report.
Nothing to report at this time.
Nothing at this time. I will say that I'll add to your liaison report, Glenn, that I've been working with the chair of the Board of Education to get the MOU, the health insurance MOU completed, and with Danielle. And as of yesterday, I believe we got to a final version that the town and the Board of Ed, we believe, can agree upon and are happy with. So they are taking that back to the Board of Education for review, and then you guys will see it in a little bit as well, assuming that there are no changes. But I think we wound up in a place that the town should be happy about.
Great.
And being that is the end of the agenda.
Tim, sorry, just one more on the liaison reports, just from
Go ahead, Mike.
The town side here. Just got a note from Linda. Sorry, let me just pull it up. Just a few days ago, back on the 15th, she just was giving me an updated status on tax collections. And, the good news is we still continue to trend positively here. As a matter of fact, she said we're up 1,054,875 ahead of the same time last year. So that's good news. And then as far as the tax deferrals go, there were 37 approved deferrals, and 15 of those have paid in full at this point in time. And she's sending out reminders to those that are still pending. They have until October 2nd to that payment without any penalty applied. So the collections, again, despite all the challenges and the current circumstances, the collections are continuing to trend favorably. So that's good news.
Yeah, Mike, is it good news, or are people paying it because they're afraid in the second half they won't have the money they don't want to lose their house?
Well, I just
I don't know if Linda
has a
knows.
crystal ball here, but yeah, I can't tell you.
Linda has no color on that.
No, I mean, and any changes I've had with her, I think she's just been pleasantly surprised and optimistic. And I mean, her office does a fantastic job, chasing folks and going after every penny that's owed to the town. So yeah, she continues to remain positive. So I mean, all you can do is look at the data relative to this point last year, and we're in a good position.
I just didn't know if she'd asked people why they were doing it.
Yeah, no, I don't think there's. I mean, I don't have any additional color commentary to add.
Okay.
Yeah. But certainly better than the other story, right? Which if it were.
Many times I've thought things were good news and they turned out to not be. That's why I asked.
Yeah. I mean, right. And one of the things actually I did query with her on this was, just the fact that we're up $1 million over last year. On the surface does sound good, right? But one of the things is our tax receipts are expected to be higher this year. We need to be running higher than last year because the amount to be raised through taxes increased year over year. But actually, the amount that has increased is less than $1 million. So we're okay, or looking good in that regard as well.
Great, thanks, Mike. One other note I will tell you is that I was hoping that the October 7th meeting we would be in person at the police station, but I had a request from the select woman that they really desperately need a meeting room, so for some interviews. So we will be virtual October 7th, and I'm hoping that after that we will be in person with an option to be virtual should people want to take that, because we'll have to still be broadcasting on Facebook Live and providing remote access for people due to limitations of indoor seating. So just that quick update on that.
So Tim, wait, go back to that. Yep. So you're talking about we're there and the public isn't?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. That's what it's looking at for now. Similar to what the Board of Education is doing, we're trying to return where we are in person, and we have a mechanism to engage the public remotely, but we're still working that out. But the next meeting will still be all remote and virtual for now.
Tim, is there any talk about the timing? Is it still at 4 o'clock or?
We haven't talked about that, and what I'll do is send an email out to poll you guys about it, and then I just need to check with Roger and people's availability to make sure we have IT support. So we'll do that in between now and then.
Okay. But when we go back in person, will it be at 4 o'clock or we don't know that yet?
No,
Okay.
no, that would have to be at the normal time.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. And with that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
And I got a motion from Glenn and a second from Dave. Thanks, everybody. Thank you, Roger.
Have a great afternoon.
Thanks, Tim. Bye.